Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Mark Jezanowski. This is the Wizard Podcast. I have not been sitting in this seat for a very long time. Excuses aside, technical difficulties aside, I think this particular space means a lot to me. It meant a lot to me when I started this podcast, and I have found myself avoiding it for a very long time. So I finally sat down, I untangled all the wires, I worked through all the technical difficulties, I worked through all the excuses, and here I am. I've made many episodes and made many recordings aside from this space, so I've never stopped this Wizard podcast process, but I wanted to get back in the seat. I wanted to get back into actual podcast mode. Today is Saturday, June 14th, 2025. I'm going to the Psychedelic Science Conference in Denver next week. I'm very excited to connect with a whole bunch of my friends, a whole bunch of new friends. I'm very excited that I'm getting to be part of, excuse me. I'm very excited that I get to be part of this film project that truly started with this podcast. It didn't start with this podcast. It started with the relationship that started this podcast, which was my relationship with Justin Carlisle. We started the Warrior and the Wizard podcast back in 2018, 2019. And he and I have been on a journey of discovery ever since we met. This journey of discovery and exploration and healing has led us to a program called Save a Warrior. It led us to another program called The Mission Within. It led us to bringing in our good friend Sean Pamphilon, who's a director and a filmmaker. Suddenly, we have hundreds of hours. Is that accurate? Definitely over 100 hours of film exploring the central relationship that Justin and I have, but it's really using our relationship to explore the landscape of this psychedelic renaissance that is taking place, and really highlighting the fact that this psychedelic renaissance is being spearheaded by veterans. So where veterans have been fed up with the healthcare system that is available to them, as most of us are, veterans, especially very open-minded leaders in the veteran community, have taken it upon themselves. Really, it started as individuals. You have individuals in the veteran community who took it upon themselves to think far outside the box of what was offered to them. And because of their own suffering and their own experience, to seek out more authentic, deeper, more holistic healing. And that journey led to veterans seeking psychedelic experiences very organically. I think if you're a really open-minded person and you are seeking healing, and this has been my own journey, you're going to continue to be open to experiences that are going to open your heart and open your mind and open your body and allow you to achieve this thing we call healing. Where my mind really is this morning, I'm not going to honestly go too far into the film or going to the Psychedelic Science Conference next week. Where my mind has been is on the concept of healing, on what is healing in my own life. As I've been a part of this film project, it's been such a fascinating process of how do you truly capture a culture of people? How do you capture a movement? How do you capture the essence of a program like Save a Warrior or like The Mission Within that helps people heal? How do you portray that? How do you show that? How do you share that? How do you capture it? Something I was really contemplating this morning is I do this meditation with people, and you can do it with me right now if you want. I'm not going to go too far into it, but imagine you're standing in front of a large aquarium. And this is like one of those aquariums where it's much larger. This is an aquarium that can have sharks and big fish in it. So you're standing in front of an aquarium And you're noticing there's big fish and little fish, and there's fish hiding in the shadows. There's fish with big teeth. There's fish moving around rapidly, and there's other fish just sitting there floating. And these fish represent your thoughts. And you notice that you are standing outside the tank, and you are observing the fish. You are the observer of the fish. And you are the observer of your thoughts. And you can even step back further, and you can see the silhouette of yourself observing the tank, and you can become the observer of the observed. And I use this metaphor to help people step into the seat of consciousness and to observe thoughts and to observe sensations and to observe experience and to recognize that we really are these conscious beings, that we are consciously aware of our experience, and that our mind and body is going to do what our mind and body does to protect us, whether we want it to or not. Something I do in this meditation, and something I do a lot in my own experience, is to not just observe the fish, to not just observe the observed, but to notice the water. To notice the water, that is the spaces between the fish. And to acknowledge the space between the planets and the stars, and to acknowledge the space between the trees and the grass and between us. And to recognize that the space is the container, and that we are having an experience in that container. And when I translate that into my healing journey, when I translate that into something tangible for healing, every single day I am engaged in a practice of observing the automaticity of my own experience, my own thoughts, my own sensations, my own body, my own memory, my own ego expression. The more you meditate, the more you practice observing, the more you recognize that your mind and body are just doing what your mind and body think it's supposed to do to keep you safe. And that is not necessarily rooted in some sort of concrete reality. It's rooted in your perception of who you think you are in the context of this thing that you think you are in, and you're fighting for meaning and survival in that thing. So my practice is to observe the experience, but it's also to observe the spaces between the experience. And that is where I find the stillness. That is where I find the most meaningful connection and experience. And when I think about healing, we go through healing experiences. We seek healing experiences. People suffer and they seek healing. We go to seek healing in what is offered to us in our society, in the medical industry, in the medical places. For veterans, they go to the VA. And too often, all of us feel betrayed, unheard, neglected, denied. That is a real collective experience, that we feel mandated to participate in these services. We pay for these services while these services deny us. There's a real parallel process taking place there culturally, where the dynamic between us and our insurance companies, the dynamic between us and our medical industry, is that we're taking part in a systemic abusive relationship. What does that mean? An abusive relationship in the home is where you have someone who is behaving badly, and when you say ouch as a child, when you express your natural emotions as a child, you're actually punished for your natural expression. So in the case of the insurance companies, for example, or the medical industry, we are mandated to participate. We have to pay for the service. The services are portrayed as, in the case of TRICARE, for example, there is no higher honor than to serve our nation's veterans. And these organizations give themselves giant pats on the back for how amazing they are at service. Simultaneously, they're engaging in willful negligence, willful denial. This is obvious to all of us now. I had a knee surgery last fall, I severed my ACL and tore my MCL in jiu-jitsu last year. I had to write 2 letters to my insurance company, and I had to get very sort of litigious sounding in order for them to change their designation of my surgery from being an elective surgery to a necessary surgery. They were trying to tell me that my knee was an elective surgery, that I didn't need it. It was like a cosmetic thing. And I am a sole proprietor. I own a private practice. I work my butt off, and I pay taxes. I pay a lot of taxes being a small business. And I get no sort of services for that. I get no sort of health care for that. You know, being someone who pays a lot of taxes, that participates in this system and follows the rules, essentially, I am neglected in this system. And the point being, I have to pay for my healthcare services, or else, there's an or else attached to it. I will be fined for it. Sounds a little authoritarian to me. You are mandated to participate in this healthcare service, and you have to pay for this service or else. And when I pay for this service, that markets itself as this unbelievably benevolent service that's going to meet my needs and meet all of our needs, and there's no higher calling than to meet our needs and help us with our health care. And then I experience willful neglect, willful denial. And then when I'm gaslighted in calling that out, that sounds, that feels, that is an abusive relationship. So many of us, me in my own personal journey, all the veterans that I get to be a part of the community of, many of us have sought out true healing experiences outside the confines of our medical industry, that we are mandated to participate in. And a lot of us have participated in ceremony, in psychedelic ceremony, in retreat type experiences. But I found myself this morning just sitting back and really thinking about, what is the essence of these healing experiences? What has actually taken place that I could define as some sort of healing? And what am I doing on a daily basis to maintain that healing, to practice what I have learned through those healing journeys? That healing is not something I just arrive at and now I'm healed and I'm okay and I don't need to do anything anymore. All of the healing experiences have taught me that I need to continue to put into practice. I need to continue to surrender into practice on a daily basis in the context of a community of practice. And I need to do that regardless of how I feel. If I rely upon how I feel, I'll never do it. So my mind and my body are going to do what my mind and my body have been programmed to do by my life experience. I need to consciously choose to participate in the practices that allow me to connect, to become love, to be compassionate from the inside out, and then to share that with others in a community of practice. For me, that's what healing is. It's not one experience. It's not one retreat. It's not one psychedelic experience. There is no magic here. There's no magic answer. There's no magic potion. There's no particular medicine that is just going to heal you and then you're going to be okay. All of the teachers, all of the medicines, all of the experiences help us understand who we are. They help us understand that we are these conscious beings in a physical body that has been programmed by experience, and our body's trying to survive. And when we actually engage in the meditation, in the mindfulness practice, in the yoga, in the jiu-jitsu, in the community vulnerability, the community sharing, when we choose to show up and to participate in a community of practice, and we choose to observe and to nurture and to work through our experience in our mind and our body, and we choose to do that collectively, we actually progressively teach and train ourselves how to do the hardest work, which is how to actually reprogram my mind, how to reprogram my body, how to get my mind, my neurology, my physiology into alignment with love, with connection, with openness. For all of us, this is something I have compassion about now. I don't even really tell a big story about my childhood anymore. I don't want to dramatize it. I have great love and empathy for my parents and who they are and how hard they worked. And once upon a time they were children, and once upon a time my grandparents were children. And you know, if we're all victims of something, we're all victims of generational trauma, and we're all victims of systemic abuse that is taking advantage of that generational trauma. So once upon a time, we were all children. Once upon a time, we were made to be open. We were made to feel. We were made to have natural instincts. We have a natural body that has natural wisdom, natural instincts, natural sensations, natural emotions. And at some point, we started to adapt our mind and our body to a hostile world, to a toxic world, to an environment that if we expressed our natural emotions, if we expressed our natural desire to connect and to feel, then we experience some sort of punishment, some sort of judgment, some sort of neglect, some sort of abuse, some sort of abandonment, some sort of betrayal. All of us to varying degrees, all of us adapted ourselves to this world that we are born into. No one is free from that. No one is free from the adaptation that takes place when you're a child. When we are adults, I think a big part of what we call healing is starting to take a big step back. That's the meditation. That's the mindfulness practice. Taking a step back and observing. I notice my mind reacts a certain way. I notice my thoughts react a certain way. I notice my body reacts a certain way. I notice I have all these automatic sensations and impulses in the form of feelings and thoughts, and that is deeply rooted in the story that I'm telling myself and in the adaptations that I've made to this life that I'm living, in this world that I'm living in. And I can progressively choose to observe the automaticity of my mind and body. I can choose to take responsibility for my breath, for my body movement, for my attention. I can do that on a daily basis and put it into practice. I can choose to do that with other people. And I can start to open my heart, and I can start to connect, and I can start to be a part of a circle of love and honesty and strength. And I can surrender into that space. I can be vulnerable to it. I can acknowledge others and be acknowledged in that space. And that is what I call healing. And healing is an ongoing journey. It's an ongoing practice. It's an ongoing journey of becoming and being. If I continue to do that over and over and over again, and I continue to surrender to the practice, to surrender to the various forms of teachers and medicines, and I continue to surrender in a community of love, and a community of strength, and a community of honesty, and a community of vulnerability, I will progressively align my mind and progressively align my body with those things: love, strength, honesty, community. And rather than being separated, rather than being in denial, rather than being in opposition, rather than feeling injured or victimized, I can become empowered in this community of love and practice from the inside out. And to me, that is what I think of as surrender to God, surrender to Christ within. It's what I truly think of as what baptism really means to me. Surrender fully my ego, my mind, my thoughts, my injuries, my story. Just surrender all the automatic stuff that my body is expressing, and allow God to become me, allow love to become me, allow Christ to become me. I don't tell a big story about that anymore. I don't impose a big story anymore. I'm not trying to tell a big story about it right now. Because in actual practice and actual experience right here in this present moment, and for all of you listening, for all of you that have experienced this, you know that the actual experience goes so far beyond language. It goes beyond dogma. It goes beyond religion. It goes beyond stories. It's an actual experience of oneness, of love, of what you can only describe as Holy Spirit, as spirit within, as some sort of energetic interconnectivity within the self and with others. And that's like the most objective language I can use. So I'm stripping away the dogma. It might sound real like, I don't know, new agey to some people or real hippie-ish to some people or whatever. That's a judgment people project into it. My most honest experience is what I think of as baptism, what I think of as the experience of healing, what all the great philosophies and spiritual practices and teachers teach us is that I am to surrender my thoughts, surrender my ego, surrender my injuries, surrender my memories, surrender the automatic expression of my mind and body, and allow God to become me, Christ to become me, love to become me. How about this? I've gotten to sit with several thousand people at this point. I've watched people grow. I've watched people heal. I've watched people discover the healing potential within themselves. I'm not doing anything for anyone. I walk next to people and I help to reveal to them what has always been there. When I watch people heal, this is what it's just humbling to me. It's amazing to me. It's inspiring to me. When I watch people heal, it is a process of letting go. It is a process of surrendering. It is a process of allowing. We are not doing anything. We are letting go of control. We're letting go of ego. We're letting go of the idea that we are in charge of it. What is left over, what is revealed, is an unbelievable desire to connect. It's an unbelievable desire to share. It's an unbelievable desire to express. It's music making, it's dancing, it's making art, it's communicating and connecting and creating from that place together. What's left over is love. And love is an energetic experience. And it seems to be ubiquitous. It seems to be everywhere and in all things. That is the one consciousness that the physicists are now talking about and exploring, and the spiritualists have always talked about. And in our modern times, what I just find really inspiring is that if you listen to podcasts on physics, for example, physicists are starting to talk about and debate the idea that consciousness is fundamental. Meaning, it used to be, the universe came out of nothing and somehow consciousness emerged out of the universe, or that we emerged out of the universe, instead of that consciousness transcends time and space. Consciousness is what we call God. Consciousness is everywhere and in all things, and that we are an experience of consciousness, that we are a manifestation of consciousness. When you meditate, when you surrender, when you heal, when you let go, when you go through baptism in the true sense, that is what you discover. That is what you experience. Physicists are talking about it. So for me, healing is surrender. Healing is letting go. Healing is being open and vulnerable in a community of practice. It's participating in that. And it's an ongoing practice. And it's an ongoing practice that you can refine over time. I think I'm going to stop there. I could go round and around and around about this thing, but that's kind of what I'm thinking about. It's what I'm riffing on. It's what I'm working on. It's where I'm at every single day. It's the community that I'm participating in. It's what this film is about. It's where my heart is. I'm sharing right now in this moment to be vulnerable and open in a community of practice. Take care, everyone.